Hello world, and welcome once again to The Top Split. I'm your host, Alex McKellar, and this is episode 7, also known as Who Would Have Thought We Would Have Made It This Far. Tonight, I didn't have one guest. I planned to have 3, and I ended up with 2. So figure that one out. This episode was my first attempt at what I'm calling The Panel. It's where a group of iRacers get together to talk about some iRacing topics. I'm the first to admit that it wasn't a format that appealed to me when I started out, as I had listened to other podcasts in that type of format and it really wasn't what I was setting out to do. Having said that, I did enjoy it, and I'm open to the possibility of doing it every now and then down the track. I think there's merit in talking about the issues that we focus on in our racing and perhaps giving ourselves a bit of a voice in a broader dialogue. So having said that, today my guests were Dennis Fiedler and Desmond Harberger. A couple of iRacing mates who I race with, just shooting the breeze about the game we all enjoy. I hope you like how it turned out. Alright, now I'd like to welcome to the first ever panel format Top Split podcast episode my sometimes teammate in the Top Split racing team, Mr. Dennis Fiedler, joining us direct from Melbourne. Dennis, how are you going?
Yeah, good, Alex. Yourself?
Yeah, going well, thanks, mate. And joining us as well will be Desmond Harberger, all the way from Rockhampton, who you may remember Des from the recent Australasian Super Skips round that we co-commentated together on Top Split TV. So welcome aboard, Des.
Thanks, Alex. It's good to be back on the chat again.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So tonight, as you're both aware, we're going to go through and have a bit of a chat around a few topics of interest to us that hopefully will be common to some of our listeners, and talk through a bunch of stuff that will hopefully, if nothing else, keep us entertained and maybe some of them as well. I thought we'd start off tonight talking about a couple of the series that we either drive in or Des, you've participated in the commentary booth in. Kicking off tonight with the Australasian Super Skips. For those of you that don't know, the Super Skips is run primarily by Simon Chambers. It's designed, I guess, in a similar fashion to the 2K Cup that we see so prominently in the Skip Barber category. However, it's designed more to be at a time zone friendly to the Australia-New Zealand club members. Personally, I think it's been going great guns. We're into our second season. It's a private league with a format like the 2K Cup where you've got pit stops and a fantastic bunch of guys racing as part of a broader community. Now, Dennis, you've been participating at least this season. I think you did a bit of last season as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I started in season 1. I think it was about the 3rd or 4th race in for you guys. And it was actually exactly what I was after. I just started racing in iRacing in end of December last year, and I was after a series in which I could race against some fair and like-minded racers. And when I did a bit of research, it looked like, the time zone was right, the people were right, and it just fitted perfectly. So when I started that off, it was fantastic, and started my love affair with the skips.
Yeah, well, that's a great place to start, that's for sure. And Des, you most recently joined me in the commentary booth, of course, welcoming RRTV's coverage more broadly this season. Of course, Bernie was meant to be here with us tonight, but unfortunately was unable to make it. But he's thrown his support in the ring for the Australasian Super Skips this season. But unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts with another series that he runs, he's only able to do it for selected rounds. And those other rounds, Des has kindly joined me in my amateur hour production of a delayed broadcast, mate. How was your first experience in the booth?
It was exciting. I actually, you get the whole butterfly situation occurring, but I really enjoyed it towards the end there. Once all the the butterflies sort of fade away. You start to, enjoy the race. And it was an awesome race, to say the least. It was just so much action, especially with, and I'll say his name correctly this time, Ian Bevan.
That's the one.
Not Ian Bell, who have I got a love affair with also. But it's, watching him bring the race back. And then, like, Dennis was saying, it's just you never seem to be able to get a racing sim and have the group of guys together on at the same time and be able to organise it. So the fact that they've got this, Simon's done such a really, really good job orchestrating the entire setup, the running, and then obviously getting you guys on board with RRTV to broadcast, and it's enjoyable.
So, yeah, it's great. I agree with you. I was thinking also from your perspective, I mean, I've recently seen you drive some of the official Skip Barber races. Obviously you weren't out on track for the Super Skips, although there's every opportunity for that on the rounds that we're not commentating, by the way, if you're interested. But, first impressions of the series and the standard of driving, what did you take away from it?
Being in sim racing for a while, and I've migrated obviously from another sim racing game to the iRacing. So the standard of quality you're always looking for is just, that no one's running in you, dive bombing, the simple, the stuff that you see on the standard races in iRacing. But to watch the Super Skips with, the guys and the caliber of drivers that were driving in it was really something else. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up when you can see, 4 cars or 2 cars going 3 wide. 3 cars going 3 wide in that situation, 4 cars staggering as they come into a corner. And then everyone seems to go through. Everyone gives the correct amount of space or just the right amount of space. Or it is an enjoyable moment to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dennis, as far as the on track action is concerned, I mean, have you found it compared to the official racing?
Yeah, going back to Des's comment of 2 cars 3 wide, that's a great one, mate.
Murray Walker at his best, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was funny about Des, I've known Des for a while now, and we used to race in other sim racing games. I know how he is off mic and off track and even on track sometimes. So I was a bit interested to see how he would go with the commentating, but I thought he did really, really well in the Super Skips broadcast, and he didn't let out his true rage nature, but he did really well. I was really, really impressed with how he came across. It was a really good effort. But getting back to what you were saying, Alex, from a driving perspective, the Super Skips is, it's a tough field. I'm just trying to break back into the top 10 again after a woeful start to the season for myself. And I've got the pace to be top 10, but then it's really hard when you've got the likes of, Luke Whitten, Christian Kabanka, Russell Clark, and, then there's, Mick Watson and Michael Corn, all the internationals that drop in as well. So it's a really tough field.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And what do you make of, I mean, I've always got a sense of community in that. And I mean, the Skip Barber itself, I've always felt it's got the best community on the iRacing service. But then as a subset of that, the Australian Club, and I don't know, I grew up a little bit with my mother, doing, sort of club racing meets in Sydney, whether it be at the old Amaroo Park or Oran Park. I used to get dragged along. I had no interest in it, to be honest, although now I see it as a massively missed opportunity. But I really get the sense, as in with other sports, that there's a real, I don't know, there's a club feeling about it. And as the Australasian Super Skips as an extension of that, sort of really, really connects a bunch of people together, and they all sort of come together with that same attitude. I mean, do you find that, or is that just me out of my own?
Well, I used to help a mate out who used to do the 250cc production bike championship in the national series back in late 1990s, and I know what you're sort of saying. There's like this little tight community that, some of them band together, others don't, and it's all drama filled. And you kind of get that. But with the Super Skips, I find it's even a bit better than that. It's almost like a shared common interest of everyone wants to go quicker and everyone wants to race hard and everyone wants to race fair.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, from what I've seen, everyone's there to do their best, but they're not there to get in the way of others achieving what they can as well. I mean, we've all got our limitations. We all recognise that. But having a platform where you can, do your best, free to range and I guess without the fear of some of the official racing that we see sometimes. But Des, I don't race a lot of other categories. I talk about the culture in the skip barbers and the Australasian super skips as an extension of that. What's it like, say, in the GT3 community? Because I know you do a bit of that.
Yeah, okay. So GT3 community is, obviously we're going to touch on this later in the scenario, so I'll draw on it later with talking about the iRating and the SR and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Majority of the guys you generally find, you can rattle off, Pesniks, the Damien McPhees, and these guys are quick. They got 5,000, IR, 6,000, 7,000. When you're with those guys, it's fine. There's not a problem. The problem that you generally run into, and you'll probably find it with like the Iberians, as we class them in the super skips, and I've been hearing a bit of. It's the same scenario. It's not necessarily the Iberians in this situation. It's generally the Americans. And some Aussies too, and because that's in our time zone. So generally that's the guys that we're running with. We find you don't ever, obviously, because it's the main part of iRacing, it's not an actual league. It's basically a bunch of guys fighting for a position, and there's win at no cost, and they'll crash. They don't care. They'll just roll around, whatever. Who cares? I don't care if I destroyed your race or not. The camaraderie isn't there between particular drivers. Different guys will respect each other, granted. And then once they start racing each other, they get to know each other better and stuff like that. So the guys at the front, again, McPhee, Pesniks and stuff like that, they tend to race quite well. But so far as the guys down the ladder, and generally because I've had a lot of trouble starting out and I've got lower like iRating and stuff, I generally tend to get pitched back with them. I get very angry, and like Dennis was saying earlier, I do tend to lose my proverbials quite quickly and easily. So, needless to say, I'm now chat banned, not because of not because of GT3, but because of just the attitude, the overall attitude of some drivers. It's that I need to win, and you're in my road, get out of my road. Yeah,
that pushes the odd button here and there, right?
It does. It really does. And what it comes down to, like you said, you got the Australasian Super Skips, which is almost an event removed for guys to go to and enjoy racing, literally tyre to tyre.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess it's that element of separation and the fact that there's different things on the line. It's not iRating and safety rating. It's, championship points that we'll talk about in a minute, but also the fact that, it's not quite by invitation only, but you've got to be approved. You can't just rock up every hour and race and then bin someone else's race at the same time and then rock up again the next hour. It's once a fortnight. It's kind of got that special thing about it in that regard, but also, if you do the wrong thing, you can get kicked out, and it's not removed in as much as the iRacing stewards process is. It's your peers that are judging you, and there's that personal connection to it. So I find it very interesting from that perspective as well, and certainly for me, that overall package adds up to a further element to the community sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that sort of stuff, Dennis?
Well, let me flip it back to you, Alex. I mean, you were involved in the setting up of the championship structure and had input on how the points system has come about for the penalties and everything like that this season, and across that more than I was. From my perspective, I was a bit surprised after season one that we've changed to this new it's sort of 2K Cup style point system, because I didn't think there was actually anything wrong with the previous penalty system.
Yeah, okay. So I've sort of steered clear, to be honest, of the stewarding and the penalty point system. I've sort of let Simon and a couple of others take care of that, because I'll be honest, I don't really, I was talking to Simon about this only today, actually. I don't really feel qualified to be a steward as such, and I often find my opinions differ to most people on it, and that for me comes down to a bit of confidence around my decision making, the fact that I haven't been doing it very long. But I think in seeking to emulate the 2K Cup standards, the primary driver for that was holding the competitors and everyone involved to a pretty high standard, irrespective of what they do in the 2K Cup, but making it clear that, it wouldn't be tolerated any sort of, actions that were untoward, so to speak. And I think people know that going in, and to that end, we don't see it. But to be honest with you, I think knowing or having raced with and alongside most of the people in the series directly, even in official racing, if not the super skips, I think everyone's on board with that. They know what they're signing up for. And to be honest with you, my recollection of last season, I should say, was we had protests from maybe the first or the second round, but I had to keep, towards the end of the season, I kept checking back with Simon if we actually had any protests. Like, we just didn't see them. And I know Simon and Luke Whitten used to go back and review the races anyway, irrespective of them, but we just didn't see it. So, that's kind of my take on it. Like I said, I kind of steered clear, partially because I was too busy to do a lot of it, but also because I didn't feel myself particularly qualified. But as a participant, how do you see it now?
Yeah, can I just ask a follow-up question to that then? Yeah. With the penalty system, why did it get introduced? Because from my mind, I read the forums. I don't necessarily speak to the drivers directly about the 2K Cup stuff, but the forums are full of salty drivers in the 2K Cup, especially after there's many incidents. And does the penalty system actually work there? I'm not sure.
I think it does, from what I've seen, in so much as it sets a standard and a culture. And the thing about something like this, and I use the phrase that you know what you're getting into or you're signing up for when you do it. I know in speaking to Philippe, and I did talk to him about it obviously in one of the previous episodes of the podcast, he was, I guess, like in all leadership things, he was setting a tone and a culture that he wanted to adhere to. And ultimately, if you want to participate in that, you know what you're getting into, and if you don't like it, you kind of don't have to sign up and drive, I guess. And that sounds a bit harsh in some respects, but he set himself out a goal to be the best competition in the world, at least as far as the skip barbers were concerned, and he felt that was a really strong part of it. Now, I kind of agree with you in terms of do we need that so much, that rigid structure in place? To some extent. The reason I say that is because I feel strongly that the culture of the drivers in there dictates that we probably don't. But I also take a bit of comfort that it is there in case, because all drivers are reviewed before they're accepted by a few of us. But if someone slips through and does the wrong thing or doesn't quite have the right attitude, there's a framework there in which we can counsel and deal with it and ultimately try and set them on what, is thought to be the right path. And if they don't take up, then, it's okay to leave as well. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess in answering yours about from driver's perspective, I had an incident in season 1 where a driver re-entered unsafely and ended up taking me out, and that ruined my race completely and utterly. And I thought I was on for a top 15, and the old driver in me sort of saying, you ruined my race. What the hell are you doing? But at the same token, there was no malice in that at all.
No,
the guy just made a poor decision after he got taken out, right? So he's obviously got the bit of the red mist going. He just wants to recover as quickly as possible, and he didn't think about the 12 cars that were coming in behind him. So
yeah, I think it's a really important point that you make. I think in official racing as well, there's a lot of red mist, as we call it, and a lot of aggro around incidents. And There have been a few exceptions that I've seen that have actually shocked me when I've watched them, where I have seen intent in incidents, but they're very, very few and far between. I think ultimately what people, if they take an objective look at things, will find is that most of it's just dumb mistakes or overestimating their ability, running out of track and ability at the same time sort of thing. Objectively looking at those things is really hard to do when you've just seen 100 IR flush down the toilet, What do you reckon about that, Des? Do you have those moments?
I was just trying to hold back on the whole concept of Dennis not losing it. But I was sort of going, yes, let it go. But the concept that I draw out in a lot of situations, in the GT3 specifically, because they are tin lids, they have the ability to take a hit. Whatever you dish out, I'm going to give it back to you twofold. So, and I've done it in the past. I've had guys, just come dive bombing in on the corner, do a quick check on the inside of me, door side, and push me literally wide. I kept it, together. 2-3 laps later, they come in and do the exact same thing. But of course, I keep my line. I don't shift, and I basically abuse the road. And I basically hand it back to them. I don't hit them. I always keep my line. It's generally when I get back in front. And it's a stupid position to be in, especially when you have someone that can pit you. But I've had guys do the exact same thing. I'll take my nose up quarter panel on the inside on a hard sweeping left-hander, and they'll just turn into me, and I lift, but I make sure that I do not move my car, because the idea is to keep it solid. Generally 9 times out of 10, you in fact have to drive into them. You have to counter what they're doing. And you do turn them. So, and in a lot of situations that these people do that to me, I do it back to them. And I am an angry driver. I'm been saying that also, I'm actually quite a lenient driver. I've had situations where I've bumped guys, pushed them through a corner, and I've basically run off in a safe position and readdress, lost 5 or 6 positions readdressing. So when I'm at fault, I'll admit it, and I will readdress every time. But I tell you what, if you want to rumble with me, it's going to be game on.
Did you hear that, Nim? I know you listen, mate, but go easy on him. You've already banned him from voice and text chat. Just give the poor bloke a break.
You know what annoys me most about that, though?
What's that, mate?
Des is saying that, he's got this strategy in which how he deals with, rough drivers and people that do that to him. I mean, if these other drivers, if they just sat back and actually thought about, racecraft and proper racecraft and actually how to approach the car in front and understand where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then actually formulate a battle plan from there that doesn't involve, door siding them or, taking them out, it'd be much better, cleanest racing all around, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The problem is, in the heat of the battle, going through all that stuff in your mind is not something that everyone does, and ultimately trying to do all the things that it takes to control the car at that speed, depending on what category it is, there's such a fine line. And I know myself, I find it very hard to push the limits of any car. But having all the strategic things in your mind is not something that you, I guess, get the capacity to do until you're really, really well practiced in these cars. And it's the same in any activity, you don't get to that higher level of strategic thinking until you've done these things for hours and hours. And of course, not everyone is willing to dedicate that. Some people will get there sooner. Other people take a long time. Some people, quite frankly, never get there. They just, there's a gap, I'll put my nose in it, But yeah, you're absolutely right, Dennis. If people did put that level of strategic thinking into how they drove and how they placed their car, we'd all be better off in the racing. It'd be awesome. Having said that, I reckon it does happen a fair bit in my experience as well.
Yeah, no, put it into retrospect. I just started. I was racing with Martin Hanlon with the BES, and I managed to get in the car. And it was hectic. I don't know whether or not you guys actually saw the beginning of it. You might have been watching Tyson, but the beginning for me was insane. And I had this guy behind me, first corner, going into the GP section of the Nordschleifer, and he was just on the inside coming in there. I knew he was coming, so I kept shifting over, and this is where I was, again, knowing where to put my car, knowing how to squeeze him out. And each time he was just under brakes, and he kept squeezing in. and I'd tap the brake, but he wouldn't check. He wouldn't check on the as he's coming in. So I just kept pulling over to the right and kept moving. I wasn't jamming it over. I was just drifting. And eventually he ran out of track and then he braked. But see now, if that were me in that position coming up on another car, I would have been set up wider on the left to follow him through the corner. So if he had a good run in through the next sequence, I would have been following him. But they're so silly with the scenarios that some of these guys play out. They don't realise that they're slowing themselves down and the car in front and the next car and the next car.
Yeah, very common at Watkins Glen this week, I'd suggest. People thinking one corner ahead, not six. So not uncommon, I'd suggest. Now, just quickly returning back to the super skips before we move on, I was going to ask you, Dennis, looking at the current standings, top five, or actually with no drop rounds, we're looking at Alex J. John on top of the table. Now, who would have thought that at the start of the season, with Luke Witten sitting in second, who scored no points last week, or last round, I should say. Russell Clark in third. Christian Kabunke, our overseas visitor, having only raced twice, has scored great points in both, sitting fourth. Mick Watson, another overseas visitor, in fifth. You know, the list goes on. There's a great number. There's 38 participants over there overall, although Des, I notice you're at the bottom with just the the appearance in the commentary booth. Yeah, no, it doesn't. But Dennis, who's your pick for the individual standings at this stage?
Oh, it's really tough, isn't it? First of all, I think we need to ban the Team I logos. I mean, I don't know what's happened and how they got together, but that's an unfair pairing if ever I've seen one.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw after race one at Barber Motorsports Park, and I was in and around the top five in a Milo sandwich at different points in the race, and I thought to myself, wow, these two together, they are going to be tough to beat. But yeah, as far as the individual go, Alex John at the top, is that a surprise to you at this stage?
Unbelievably, because out of the two at the start of the season, I would have picked Russell to be the faster one for starters, but for Alex to be number one overall, that's just, out of this world. But I think, Alex, I raced a fair bit with him last season, and his iRating's coming up. He just made a top split appearance in Monday Night Lights last week for only the second time, I believe, and he's getting quick. He is no doubt a quick driver. He's building up that consistency now, and yeah, he'll be a force to be reckoned with in the future. But I think over the course of the championship, I think Luke, if he appears for the next race, I think he's definitely one to beat. But I think Russell might take it as well. I mean, he's I've always had I've always respected Russell's driving. He's always quick, and he's fairly consistent too. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I've raced with Russell as a teammate previously and over a number of seasons, and we still keep in regular touch. It's funny, I've always found him just that hair quicker than me. Sometimes has bad luck with consistency in results, holding him back a little bit. But I'm really pleased to see that across all these championships, whether it be the Australasian Super Skips, the Monday Night Lights, or even just the official standings, he's cracked over 1,000 points in the official series for the Skip Barber category. That's something I've never been able to do. So, and the fact that he's sitting third here, and from memory he's on top. Yeah, he's currently leading the Monday Night Lights. For me, as up and down as sometimes his weeks can be, he has this level of consistency which is really coming to the fore when it matters in these championship races. So, hats off to Russell. And as far as the team championship goes, you've got Team Milo 1 and 3, the force to be reckoned with. I haven't got the team's points in front of me because I think I actually forgot to update them after the last round, so I'll have to go around and do that. But no doubt Team Milo will be on top. Can you see anyone beating that combination?
No, not for the team's championship, but I will throw down the gauntlet. Michael and myself, we've been working quite hard in New Holland Racing to really stick it to them as much as we can, and I reckon we'll get close, but I don't think we'll pip them. I mean, Alex and Russell just have too much of a head start. I had a really torrid run at the early start of the season.
Yeah, I was just looking at your results there, a couple of low-scoring rounds. And I mean, I guess along with you guys in New Holland Racing, there's a top split racing team with myself and Simon, and sometimes substitute Kevin Henderson in there as well, depending on who's in the commentary booth. So there's that. And then Luke Whitten, I think is he teamed up with Aaron Drury? I'd have to pull it up, but the hatful of points that Luke brings each round will certainly go a long way to helping their team. And he pretty much won the team's championship on his own last season. So good luck to those guys as well. I'm sure they'll do pretty well. But Des, I don't know if you had a chance. Have you checked out the new the new website with the point scoring and everything?
I have. I was just trying to find it then, but I couldn't find it. But just touching on like Luke, like with different drivers and stuff, and obviously I'm new to the series, so I'm looking at it through eyes,
fresh eyes,
fresh eyes, basically, yeah. So you say Luke, I know he's a good driver. Don't get me wrong, but he has been so inconsistent from what I've seen so far this year in this second series. I just don't know if he can be a contender. But again, like I'm only looking at it from afresh. So, like you said, Clarkey, John, I've raced against them both this week. And until like Alex didn't know me, and then he realised, well, halfway through the race, he goes, "Oh, I'm gonna, he's gonna work with me, so we're gonna work together on this." So, and we sunk into a rhythm. So, but yeah, Clarkey's quick, just and they're going to be the force to be, from what my understanding is, just consistency wise, what I've seen. I think they're the guys to beat in the actual both. I wouldn't mind. Russell will probably push up into second, and I reckon I'm going to say it. Here it is.
Yeah.
1-2.
Oh, 1-2 team Milo. Yeah, look, I go along with you with regards to Luke. He's had a pretty rough season from what I've seen. I don't know if there's anything other than a trail of bad luck, but I'm sure he'll bounce back bigger and better. I mean, he cracked 5,000 iRating the other day, so congratulations on that. Mind you, it was a short visit, but I'm sure with his pace and some more consistent results, he'll get back there. Quickly turning our attention to the Monday Night Lights, just briefly. We're into season 8 now. Des, I don't know that I've got your name on the scoreboard yet. Are we going to see you in any Monday Night Lights events coming soon?
Not until I probably get my iRating up a bit higher. So I want to be a part of the broadcast basically, and I just sitting back. But it is an option to get in there. But I get at times you concentrate on a particular car. Like as you know, I'm racing the GT3s as well. So
yep.
The second that I get into another car, the skips are good. They are really good, but I tell you what, it punishes me when I get into the GT3. So when I'm switching backwards and forwards, and honestly, I probably will get into them because I was in Division 3 and I was up in about between second and first in the actual division. But then again, my temper got the betterment of me, and I dropped a few. Actually, that was just after the blow up. So yeah, it was, that's when I dropped a heap of rounds in that. So I'm back to about 53rd. I think I'm 6th in Australia at the moment in Division 3. But,
so what's your iRating at the moment, mate?
2,396, I think it is.
Yeah. So that's pretty close. Dennis, you're getting in around 2,800 these days, aren't you?
Depends on how good a week I've had. I started off about week 5. I was 3,200, and then I had this massive trough. I ended up at 2,500. In the last couple of weeks, I've managed to get myself back up around the 2,800. But
definitely a painful drop. But that's been sneaking you into the top split for the coverage, hasn't it?
Oh God! When I went to Okayama, when it was, how many splits was it? It was 5 or 6 splits?
Yeah, 5 splits.
Oh man, I was fretting. I thought, I'd be in the 3rd split, let alone the 2nd one. And then lo and behold, here I am, last car in top split.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think when we were having a look at it, the guy that, because I did a race in the officials just beforehand, and I just got a couple more iRating. And when we look back at it, the number 1 car in the 2nd split was only 3 IR behind me. So that goes to show you just how skinny a margin I managed to get in by.
Yeah, it was pretty tight. I remember on the day it was it was remarkably tight. But now, Des, you mentioned part of the appeal was having the broadcast there, and I know that certainly the difference in participation between the seasons where I was sort of coordinating it without double RTV coverage and the impact that having Bernie come and return to the coverage has made. What are your thoughts on what difference it makes having a broadcast of the race going?
I think broadcasting impacts this game immensely. It really drives the popularity of it up. I'll admit it. You know, one reason that if I do race the Skippies on the Monday Night Lights is for the broadcast. It's to be seen, but it's not just that. Yeah, I don't know. You watch car racing all the time on TV, you know, and everyone aspires. You know, why are we racing a simulator and not Grand Theft Auto or Flat Out 4 or something like that? It's because we want that emotion, that drive to that immersion of this is as close as we'll get in our life to real racing. So when you start getting into broadcast, you know, people saying your name, you're going, oh, geez, you know. Well,
it's a little bit of a thrill, isn't it, right?
It is. It really is. And I think that's what the appeal is for a lot of guys in this, you know. Well, how many people, you know, they'll see a broadcast on iRacing, the main page, and how many people click on it? Just have a look.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, for a while there, we were getting the Monday Night Lights up there on the main page, but I think there's a scheduling conflict and someone else gazumped us or something happened there, which was disappointing. What about you, Dennis? What's the appeal, or what do you think a broadcast brings to a race like that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, for me, it provided a race that I could actually focus on, right? So the Super Skips was, you know, a hosted session, and that's all great. But when it comes to the official series, Monday Night Lights is actually one that you can sort of gear up for, and you can practice, you know, with the races all through the week, and you can get a feel for the competitors. The other side of it is that it also takes the guesswork out of, you know, working out which is the Aussie Strength of Field race each week. When you look at the Pro Mazda series or the, you know, Formula One series, if you want to participate in those series, you actually have to look up a timetable on the net, and, you know, the Strength of Field races are at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, if you're lucky, or, you know, the 2K Cup for the Skips is, you know, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Australia, and on Monday morning, and who can do that on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think the key point around the Australian or Aussie New Zealand strength of field and placement for that, and really drawing attention to that's really good, because getting the opportunity to score those high points and maybe have a tilt at the championship is not something that's very easy to do, as you say. The big races, and it's interesting, the one that's massive each week now that's overtaken you know, all others is there's a midweek one on, I think it's on like a Wednesday or Thursday start of work time for us here on the East Coast at least. And they're getting the highest strength of field every week, you know, well up towards the high 4,000s, usually around 47 to 4,900. But again, that came from nowhere. That was people on a forum saying, why do we have a midweek strength of field? They've managed to secure a broadcast from Race Spot, and now the points on offer there are incredible. So it really shows to you what, you know, a little bit of community coming together, organised, plus the broadcast on it can really do. But, yeah, just moving away from that for a moment, I wanted to change. Now, listeners, you may have picked up, Des is a pretty passionate bloke. He says what's on his mind, and he has an opinion or two, like most of us. I wanted to turn my attention to the topic of safety rating just briefly. Des, tell us about your thoughts on the safety rating system. I mean, we all know it applies to what license that we hold, you know, right out of rookies all the way up. It determines what categories you can race, and it governs primarily, well, it's iRacing's way of enforcing their code of conduct, with penalties around it. Your experiences, mate, what are your thoughts on it?
When in any system or anything that you develop, you always start out, you always begin out, you'll make something, and you say as an example, let's say an arrow. Let's go back to hunting. And each time you always develop it and you make it better, and you always take the next step and you make it better, and you make it better based on the previous design. The problem that I have with the SR rating, the safety rating, is that they have never, try to improve on it. And I am, like you said, I am very passionate about these things. So whenever I go, this is a perfect example. Actually the perfect example, Brands Hatch GT3, I'll recall it for you.
Yep.
I was leading. I'd had a touch at the beginning of the race. Now I took a 4 times incident count because the guy behind me touched me.
Yep.
There was nothing in it. There was whatever. No damage, no nothing. Yep. Okay. So there's that. Now, granted, you run off the track. Now, when generally the concept of the ruling is if you run off the track and you gain time, it's an unfair advantage. But when you run off the track on the outside, like you're literally mid corner or something like that, and you run on the outside, you lose time. And they punish you for it, which, okay, fair enough, I'll wear that, And in this specific scenario, this is what was happening. There was specific spots on Brands Hatch that you can actually push it wide on the right hand, leading on the second last corner.
Yep.
And you just touch it, and that's it. It's an incursion. Yep. So anyway, I've managed to jump a guy in the pits. I've managed to, seconds, we're talking milliseconds here. I've managed to get out. We were side by side exiting the pit. Yep. He backed out, and I thought, you beauty. I've managed to jump him, come around the first lap, and we would know, he was right on me. Coming into the first corner, he's off brake to check up to come into the corner just more aggressively to get on the power. It's caught him, and he's come right up on me, but he's on the brakes, just touched me. And then I was disqualified because I took the full amount of incidents. Now, I lost iRating. I lost a lot of SR, all because of an incursion point that hasn't been revised. It's a silly system for me that it's just silly that they haven't implemented a better system via contact. And I've spoken passionately about these particular things, even with you guys, and I'm like a broken record. So that they can do stuff better. They really can. But and that's what I love this game. I really do. At the end of the day, I'm here all the time. There are other games I could play, but I'm here. And what I end up having with a lot of scenarios with these sorts of games, I did it with Project Cars, is I get really upset when I'm enjoying a game and it's broken. And then they can just fix this little bit. It would be brilliant, but they won't.
Oh, do you really think SR's broken though, mate?
It's broken at its core.
Why? Okay, so why do you think it's broken at its core?
Okay, so with the incursions that you perfect example was just then. I just got touched and I took a 4-point incursion just for a touch. No, there was no crash. Nothing was involved. There was nothing wrong with it. I can take a cut track. Yes, okay, here's a cut track. This is the other part that, in that scenario is that with cut tracks. Now, if you're consistent, at the end of the day, if you're consistent, it doesn't matter. If one person cuts the track there, yes, but if he cuts it there, no, that's inconsistent. And this is what occurs with these specific tracks, is that it happened with us at Spa. We're doing the 24-hour endurance. One guy did 500 incursions, and they never lost. And that was actually brought up in the one of the casts that they're talking about it on. They said he's got 500 incursions. How hasn't that team been eliminated? Mm-hmm. So he wasn't even racing on the track, but everyone else was sort of getting punished. And you lose time. And in that scenario, when that starts occurring, that is the fundamental point of it being broken, is that when you can't have consistency throughout, it becomes broken.
So that that 24-hour event, right? That wouldn't have had an incident limit, right? So that's why he would have cracked up 500. So everyone there is playing by the same rules, yeah. So
yes,
everyone could have done the same thing. They obviously had no incident limit. I assume, was there SR on the line in that one?
No.
All right.
Yeah, there is. There is for the 24-hour races there are, and he would have taken a hefty whack for that. But having said that, there's no penalty other than that, right? And if he doesn't care about his license, well, good on him. What I would say, though, in Rhodes' defence here, is that certain tracks need to be tweaked, and Spa is one of them, right? It's too sensitive, I feel. It's out of all the tracks, everyone, I hear it on the chat, I hear it in the forums, any time a series goes to Spa, everyone's talking about the incident and the off tracks. And it is really sensitive on that track, and I don't know if it's because the curbs are too low and you can abuse the track limits far more there. But I'd then, watch the Formula Ones, and while they do abuse some of the curbs when they're racing over them, not as much as what we're seeing in iRacing, right? So maybe they need to lessen that penalty or re-look at how the off track is actually determined from a programming standpoint, not just the fact that this is the boundary of the curb and here is an off track, but you sort of seem to have it in like Watkins Glen. You can seem to climb all over those curbs and not get an off track, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of things in there. So for me, the track limits where you pick up an incident point, they're obviously programmatically determined, and they're like a boundary. And if you cross over, I think it's 50% of the car crosses over that, which seems to be really different depending on which car you're in. You pick up that incident point. I think similar to I think of the talk about rugby league. Do you remember the corner post rule in rugby league? I don't know. It used to be that if you're going for a try, so the corner post, for those who don't know, marks the juncture of the try line where you put the ball over and score a try, score 4 points, and the extremity of the outline of the sideline of the field. And it used to be that if at any time the ball carrier touched that corner post, he was considered out, right? But at nowhere else on the field did the sideline stick up 3 feet or 4 feet, right? It was a weird. It was incongruous with the spirit of the game, right? It was really there just to point out so that people could have a reference point as to where the try line met the side of the field. So what they did was, over a period of time, there was some thinking about, context of the game and what it actually meant other than a visual reference point. So they made it so it wasn't out, right? And now people do all sorts of things that might touch the corner post. I mean, the stupid thing about it was, at the start of the game, the corner post was perfectly vertical and all the rest of it, but after a few minutes or whatever in the game, quite often it was just this floppy thing at one corner and the other end of the field might still be, perfectly erect. So it was a ridiculous rule, and people in the context decided that was that. They take that out of play other than a visual reference, and now you can hit it all you like and not be counted as out. Now, I come back to the world of iRacing and I say, when they determine the track limits, in my opinion, perhaps what should be done is, and I'm sure they probably do it, but I can't say for sure, is think about how drivers will drive that track. Drive multiple cars around there, different categories, the fast ones, the slow ones, the ones that have got, high downfalls and the ones that don't, and make some, I guess, contextual decisions about where you put those boundaries. We all know there are 1X farming tracks out there, depending on what category you're in, and perhaps, as you say, they should be revised. I think they actually do from time to time. Are either of you aware of that?
Yeah, they have. They did a review on the 24-hour Le Mans when they actually brought that track out. They found a lot of people through the first kink. You got the hard left, and then back onto the right. People running hard left up through the tyre, and they did a patch just before. Literally the day before the race, where they adjusted it and they put a thing down, basically said you're not allowed to drive out there. So
yeah, you're 100% right. I remember that it was actually midweek patch, if I'm not mistaken, when they did that. Now the other thing that I think that I actually like, I guess, about the safety rating system and the licensing system that's in and around it, is that think about the fact that there are no live stewards. Right. There's a code of conduct, a way that's been determined that we're meant to drive on the track. That's, I guess the genesis of the culture under which we all race, in official racing at least. Can you imagine the cost and the resources that would be required to have a live steward at every race? So, in lieu of that, what they've got is this procedurally generated system that polices us, live, if you like, by a predetermined set of rules. So, it's never going to be perfect. It is the same for everyone. And in my mind, short of having suggestions about, reviewing the track limits, like I said, it's not too bad. And I know it bites us all sometimes, but, in the absence of having live stewards, Dennis, what would you change about it?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of points that I would suggest for changes if I had the control to direct the programmers in what they should be doing. First one I think would be pretty straightforward, right? So I think we've all faced this situation, right? There's a guy in front or a girl.
Yeah, there are a few out there.
Yeah.
Or other.
Or yes.
Oh, come on, let's not start that debate. Do you know in Canada there's like 72 personal pronouns that you have to use by law, and you can get put up in front of a. I mean, come on, please. Anyway, that's a conversation for another time.
Let's identify as
people,
gender neutral. Shall we?
There are other people on the track.
Yeah, no problems. So the other person in front of you, if we've all faced it, right? We're traveling along and they lose it, right? So they get a 1x to begin with for maybe going off the track for a little bit, or they end up getting a full 2x where they're, going backwards, but you have nowhere to go and you end up cleaning them up. And 9 times out of 10, for whatever reason, I end up picking up a 4x out of that kind of contact.
Yep.
Surely they can put in a simple programming feature that says if someone gets a 2x, because that's, we all know, a loss of control, that the other person that collects them doesn't pick up a 4x, maybe even a 2x if you're not sure, but just it doesn't deserve it, right? I can't think of too many scenarios where a loss of control and then another driver ploughing into that person with a loss of control should pick up any penalty whatsoever.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, Des, you go.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I agree with what you were saying, Alex, with this scenario is that, you don't have the opportunity to have a light steward on all the time. And it is, at its core, the design, the thought, I suppose, is good. The concept that they need to start to develop, though, within that is, like I was saying, it's not an arrowhead carved out of a rock. You need to, we need to start reviewing it a bit more. We need to start, like what Dennis was basically saying, is that they've got to start realizing that if there's a situation that is occurring, and we're not talking, again, I'm not a programmer and I don't know what would be involved in the scenario, but the concept would be is if you're in a vicinity, like the game knows where the cars are. I know that for a fact. It registers contact. It registers the amount of contact, the speed that you contacted the car with or the other person. So it has the ability to understand parameters. So when specific parameters occur within that scenario, they need to address them with an algorithm that basically stipulates what Dennis was saying, is that he spins out, 2 times, 4 times from that car with a percentage greater than this, contact value greater than this. He doesn't get punished for it because he's already been punished. He's going to lose iRating. So, and it's not even his fault. So that the system is where I'm sort of trying to come. You can't. There's no point getting rid of it, but we need to start reviewing it a bit more.
Yeah, look, I'd suggest that they do review it and they do tweak it from time to time. I don't think it's like the 10 Commandments and carved in stone, so to speak. I think one of the key points out of it, when I read through the system or about the system, was the fact that it's no fault, no blame kind of system, because we don't, again, I'll go back to that point about live stewards. We don't have live stewards, so there's no way you can determine intent or blame because there's no one watching it. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I mentioned before that I've sort of avoided to some extent the stewards and casting an eye over stuff, because I find it very subjective and in terms of determining blame. And as much as I try to put my own or put myself in the shoes of the drivers involved, determining intent and what was going on in their mind at the time is very, very difficult, let alone to do that in absentia, so to speak. So having a computer program do that for you. So very, very challenging, I would have thought. So, but certainly, an interesting topic. Anything you'd like to close out with on that one, Dennis?
Yeah, I was going to make another suggestion, but I might just finish up by saying that I've been racing in many sim racing games and, Project Cars and Assetto Corsa and now iRacing, and I basically reside in iRacing these days. But out of all those sim racing games, I find that, the open lobbies, especially in Project Cars and Assetto Corsa, were real pure cancer, right? They had nobody with any sort of sense of, any sort of moral perspective as far as what they should and shouldn't be doing on the track. You got kids in there that, got a game for Christmas or for their birthday, and they just jump in. And oh, look at this, it's fun to drive around backwards and crash into people, and people are just there to have, a semi-serious race, or some get a bit more serious, and you just have it ruined by, just someone who just doesn't have that same ethos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where I think, we're sort of having a go at SR at the moment, but I think we all agree that, it's not 100% broken. It's definitely best out of the bunch. And
Yep.
I definitely think that it's a fairly good system. And I certainly think that, 17X is enough for a standard official race. And Broads, just run off the road less, mate, and you'll be fine.
I was going to say there was 8 points in that were contact, and 9 of them, by the sounds of it, off track. So
yeah, but I had another 8 off tracks. Come on,
listen to him.
Look, just to round it up from my perspective, Nim Cross is a friend of the show. Obviously, he's been on before, and I was actually, as I said at the time, I was very impressed with him. Very articulate, and came across as very passionate about what he does in what would be a very tough role. I do think, like I said, that the safety rating system puts a framework around what we do. And personally, both in looking at that, what you were just talking about there, Dennis, in terms of the environment that's built around, kid friendly, which is again very important to me. And the culture of driving that's tolerated, if you like, to find, a system that works in any way, shape or form, and manages to contain the culture of what you often see on the seedier side, so to speak, of the internet and gaming culture to the standard that we see today is actually a pretty damn good effort in my book. So, I'll probably leave it at that, but I think we had quite a number of things that we were going to talk to tonight, but we're sort of deep into our time. So what I might do from now, Des, is get you to think about attaching your steering wheel to the desk and having your crack at the top split leaderboard.
Oh, yeah, what time have I got to beat? What?
Hang on.
Like I can beat it?
That's a good point. So we'll be on the skippies at Okayama, and I will just pull up the time to beat in a moment. Sorry, I should have been a bit more organised than that, but in the meantime, mate, get yourself set, and we'll come back to you in a sec. All right, so we've managed to make our way across to Okayama in the Skip Barber. Off you go, mate. I can see you in the pits there. Kick us off. Of course, you're a recent addition to the Skip Barber community.
Yes.
We raced here a couple of weeks ago, so you got some advantage in that, I would suggest. But you asked before who the leading driver was. Well, it was my previous guest on the last episode, Tyson Meyer. Twitch streamer extraordinaire. He's done a 1:44.4, and you pointed out, I think just before we were talking off air, that it's quite a hot track. So I'd expect that'd be a pretty tough time to beat for you, mate. Are you confident?
Yeah, I got no help. At 141, I don't think I can throw a rock at it. I don't think so.
It'll be interesting if he gets close to Tyson's lap, right? He's quick, and Tyson's a fair old hand in these cars too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you've got Matt Malone, the other Grip TV streamer, with a 45.4. Nim Cross, of course, with a 45.6. So there's a reasonable cluster of times there to nestle in with. Tyson with a full second gap on the other guys, and Bernie, the great man himself, Bernie Weemer's currently sitting in fourth with a 46.6. So it's been great to see Bernie back in the car, I'll be honest, but certainly the time to beat still a 44.4 as we see Des come around. Now what I should do is probably chuck up the track map if I can get it. Hang on, I'll see if I can get it. There it is. Bodgy old Okayama. There we go. Des coming around now to kick off his first lap. Car plate number 1, mate. That's self-chosen, or do you not set a number for your car? What's your typical number?
It's 17.
Just must not have set it for this 17. Car. All right, so we're around corner 1. Nice. Using all the track there, mate. Coming around turn 2 now. Down to this
Might find an apex at one of these points, mate.
Come on. He might find an apex soon. We're coming down. Very, very important corner down here. Probably the most important corner on the track, turn 4. It leads on to the longest straight, of course, and where normally when you've got a pack of cars, you're looking to draft and find yourself a position or two as you come into the turn 5 hairpin at the end here. Des looking really strong at this stage.
Reckon he's going to outbrake himself down here?
I don't know. Oh, he's brake quite late there. Oh, he's run wide through. That's okay. You can still get a good drive out of there, Des. Up in a second now. Nice. Not quite clipping the curb there, but nice track out there. Hopefully not a 1X. Oh, he's making every bit of the track count there as he heads down to through this tight technical section. Another left-hander in first gear here, kissing the curb on the inside. Look, folks, he found that apex in the end. It was just a bit of time, matter of time. Quite tight entry there as we head up to Michael Knight corner now for the first time. Nice kiss of the apex there, mate. Braking late again, turning the car in to come around once again the creatively named final corner. Running down the front straight now to set his opening lap time. Let me see if I can't pull that up for you there. So far, a 44.9, off to a cracking start. Only need to make up half a second on this lap, Des, mate. That's a great first lap. Nice.
Only half a second.
Yeah, no. Well, you can do that in these cars when they come out cold, of course. Heading down the hill now, Des. What are you thinking at this point? Very nice again.
I think he's in full concentration mode, right?
Oh, he's run a bit deep there through turn 4. Get on the gas hard, mate, as we head up the main straight once again.
Having trouble pulling this car up.
Well,
just that hot weather.
It is quite sticky out there, not in terms of grip, but in terms of temperature. Into 5th gear now, maxed out just under 170 by the looks. Into 1st gear. Round turn 5 hairpin, nice exit there. Not quite over as far to the right as I'd like to see, but a nice kiss of the apex there. Tough section through here to get riders again. Getting the rear of the car out a bit there, mate. That's good to see. Coming into again, this very technical section of the track where you can really, one of the few places on the track that you're really jeopardising your run and can run off here. Very tight entrance through there. What's your thinking behind there, Des?
I'd seem to get more speed through there. I've tried going wide. It just seems to...
You know there's no one on there that you have to defend from, right? It's just you out there.
No, it's just the line that I take.
Very good.
Gear just ends, so I dropped it.
All right.
It's 2 tenths down. So I gained a 10th, 9th.
Yeah. So last lap of a 1 foot. Oh, he's only improved by a 10th. There you go. Well done.
There you go. Got the run.
Beautiful. So that's it, mate. You're done. That's it.
Oh, no. Just when I had the perfect run through there. Look at this. But I'm wide anyway. Oh, see, that's what I mean. Off track. I had 2 cars on the road the whole time.
So if I pull that up now, looking at that now, look at that, beautiful, folks at home. I've actually figured out how to use some of this stuff. Desmond Harberger pulled up a 144.8, which by my calculations puts you at the second step on the podium at this stage, mate. So fantastic effort, mate. I know this isn't a car that you run very often, so fantastic of you to put on a great show for us here tonight, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
Maybe next time you can do better.
Hey. Who's got to have their turn yet?
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. Down the track, if we get around to doing another one of these episodes, I know he'll be next on track. Dennis, what do you reckon, Des?
Oh, for sure. And well, then I've got to be on the panel again, and I'm going to be there doing the exact same thing. I'll be there for support for him.
For support, because I know how supportive Dennis was then.
Des's support will be as welcome as a thorn up the rear end.
Oh dear!
Oh dear! Oh, look at too low a gear.
Well,
backseat driver.
Well, that was great, guys. First attempt at a panel episode. Sans Bernie Weemers, of course. Bernie, like I said earlier, was meant to join us tonight, which would have added a nice additional dynamic. But I think for our first crack at it, we've gone okay, guys. So once again, Dennis Fiedler and Desmond Harberger, both of you, I really appreciate your time and spending it here with me on what is I suppose, Des, for you, it's a warm Saturday night, but certainly probably for Dennis and me, quite cold. So, Dennis, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Des. Been barrel laughs.
Yeah, Des, thank you, mate. I really appreciate you joining as well, mate.
No, I'll see you tomorrow night.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
All right, thanks, guys, and hopefully we'll do one of these again in the future. So there you have it, folks. That was our first crack at the panel. Something a little different and perhaps something to have another crack at down the track. One thing that stuck with me when we finished was my story about the post in rugby league, or the corner post, I should say. I realised that there may be a ton of people out there who probably painted pictures in their minds about these posts on the side of football fields. And I'm assuming that there are plenty that probably haven't watched the game, of course. I just wanted to clarify that they are made out of a softish material. Picture a 5 foot tall toilet roll without the paper on it, of course, and painted black and white in the design of a barber's pole. You confused yet? Maybe I'll quit while I'm behind. I just didn't want people to think that we had those solid metal poles on the outsides of fields. Well, I guess I've either confused everyone or they get what I mean. And again, I think I'll quit now. Given we covered most of the standings and the likes of the usual series that I deal with, I'm going to close the show a bit more quicker this time. I'm chasing Johnny Guindy for the next episode, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. I'm sure those of you that know Johnny will, like me, have him odds on to give Tyson a shake at the top of the top split hot lap challenge. That's a mouthful, isn't it? But next time, or until next time, I should say, I'll thank you all for taking the time in your day to listen to the show. I've really appreciated the feedback that I've received, whether it be on track during race sessions or those who have been joining me on the Top Split TV Twitch channel, or even just a note on the threads I post in the iRacing forums. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive and it's genuinely very much appreciated. Speaking of the Top Split TV Twitch channel, make sure you connect with me there. I'm back on the streaming bandwagon and I've been really enjoying it. The support has been fantastic. So much so, Twitch offered me affiliate status within the first few weeks. It's not as impressive as the likes of Tyson and Matt, two of my previous guests who have partner status. It's a new program to help encourage people like you and me who are just starting out trying to build an audience while they're having a bit of fun streaming. Either way, I've been having a blast and the iRacing community on Twitch is great. So shoot on over to Twitch TV website and check out my channel by searching for Top Split TV. Otherwise, check out the website at thetopsplit.com or hit me up on Facebook by searching for The Top Split. Finally, if all else fails, tune in to RRTV each and every Monday night on YouTube, where I team up with the great man himself, Bernie Weemers, to bring you all the live on-track action of Monday Night Lights. For now, though, I shall bid you adieu, and until next time say, ciao for now.